What if the life you're living right now isn't controlled by your actions, but by something you're not even aware of? Something quiet, invisible, constantly running in the background, and no matter how hard you try to change your life on the surface, it keeps pulling you back to the same patterns, same thoughts, same habits, same results. You promise yourself you'll do better, you'll think better, you'll become better, but somehow you don't. And that gap between who you want to be and who you keep becoming starts to feel personal, like something is wrong with you, like maybe you just don't have what it takes. But what if that's not true? What if the real problem is you've been trying to change the wrong part of your mind? Because here's something most people never realize. You don't live your life from your conscious mind. You live it from your subconscious mind. And once that hits you, everything starts to make sense. Your habits, subconscious. Your reactions, subconscious. Your beliefs about yourself, subconscious. Even the way you see the world is filtered through patterns you didn't consciously choose. Now think about that for a second. If your subconscious is programmed in a certain way, then your life will follow that program, automatically, without asking for permission. Which means something slightly uncomfortable is also true. If you feel stuck, it's not because you're lazy. It's because your subconscious has been trained to keep you exactly where you are. And this is where things start to shift. Because once you see this, you stop blaming yourself, and you start asking a better question. Who programmed my mind in the first place? Was it your childhood? The environment you grew up in? The things people said to you when you were too young to question them? Be realistic. Don't aim too high. You're not that type of person. Small phrases, repeated over time, quietly sinking into your subconscious until one day they stop sounding like someone else's voice and start sounding like yours. And that's when it gets dangerous, because now you're not just hearing those limitations, you're believing them, acting on them, living inside them. Now here's the part nobody tells you. Your subconscious doesn't care if something is true, it only cares if something is repeated. Let that sink in. If you tell yourself something often enough, your mind accepts it as reality, even if it's false, which means the same system that's been holding you back is the exact system that can set you free. But wait till you hear this, because this next idea changes everything. Your subconscious is always listening, not sometimes, not when you're focused, always. It listens to your thoughts, your self-talk, the quiet things you say to yourself when no one else is around. I'm not good enough. I always mess things up. This is just how I am. And each time you repeat those thoughts, you reinforce the program. You strengthen the identity. You make it harder to change. Now pause for a second. What's one thing you've been telling yourself lately? Something small. Something you don't even question anymore. Think about it. Because that thought might not just be a thought. It might be a command, and your subconscious is obeying it. Be honest. Does that feel familiar? Now here's where things get uncomfortable, because once you realize this, you can't unsee it. You start noticing how often your mind works against you, how quickly it defaults to doubt, to fear, to limitation. And for a moment, it can feel overwhelming, like you're stuck inside a system you didn't build. But this is where the story begins to turn, because the moment you become aware of the program, you gain the power to change it. Not instantly, not magically, but deliberately. And that changes everything.
But before you can rewrite your subconscious, you have to understand something deeper, something most people completely ignore. Because here's the real reason change feels so hard. It's not because you lack motivation. It's because your subconscious is trying to protect you. Yes, protect you. Even if that protection is keeping you stuck, even if it's limiting your growth, even if it's holding you back from the life you actually want. Sounds strange, right? Why would your own mind work against you? But there's a reason, and once you understand it, you'll stop fighting your mind and start working with it. And that's where real change begins.
Your subconscious isn't trying to ruin your life. It's trying to keep you safe. That's its only job. Safety, familiarity, predictability. And here's the problem. Your subconscious doesn't define safe as what's best for you. It defines safe as what's familiar to you. Even if that familiarity is painful, even if it's limiting, even if it's the very thing you're trying to escape. Think about that for a second. If you've spent years doubting yourself, then doubt feels normal. If you've spent years procrastinating, then avoiding things feels comfortable. If you've spent years believing you're not enough, then staying small feels safe. So when you try to change, when you try to grow, your subconscious reacts. Not with support, but with resistance. You feel it as hesitation, overthinking, sudden fear, that weird urge to go back to your old habits, even when you know better. And that's the moment most people misunderstand. They think, I'm not disciplined. I'm not motivated enough. I keep failing. But that's not what's happening. Your subconscious is doing exactly what it was programmed to do. Protect the familiar, even if the familiar is the problem. Now here's where it gets real. Because if you don't understand this, you'll keep fighting yourself. And fighting your own mind is a battle you will always lose. But if you do understand it, everything changes. Because now you stop forcing change, and you start guiding it. And this next idea might be the most important one in this entire journey. Change doesn't happen when you fight your subconscious. It happens when you reprogram it. But wait till you hear this. Because reprogramming your subconscious doesn't require some extreme method. It doesn't require hours of effort. It requires something much simpler. Something you're already doing every single day. Repetition. But not just any repetition. Emotional repetition. Because your subconscious doesn't respond strongly to logic. It responds to emotion. That's why one emotional experience can shape your beliefs more than years of thinking. That's why a single moment of embarrassment can stay with you for years. That's why one powerful memory can define how you see yourself. Emotion is the language of the subconscious. And once you understand that, you start using it differently. Instead of casually repeating negative thoughts, you become intentional. You begin feeding your mind new patterns, new beliefs, new identities. Not once, not twice, but consistently. Because repetition builds familiarity, and familiarity becomes your new safe. Now here's a question most people avoid. If your mind is always repeating something, what is it repeating right now? Is it building you or limiting you? Think about it. Because this is one of those quiet truths most people don't want to face. Your current life is a reflection of your dominant thoughts. Not the occasional ones, not the ones you say once in a while, the ones you repeat, daily, automatically. And this is where things begin to shift emotionally. Because now you realize you're not stuck, you're just conditioned. And conditioning can be changed. But here's where most people hesitate. They hear about positive thinking, they hear about affirmations, and they immediately dismiss it. It doesn't work. It feels fake. I don't believe it. And honestly, they're not wrong. Because saying something you don't believe, without emotion, without consistency, won't change anything. But this is where people miss the deeper truth. The goal isn't to force belief immediately.
The goal is to plant a new seed and then water it daily, with repetition, with emotion, until slowly your subconscious begins to accept it. Because remember, your subconscious doesn't judge, it doesn't argue, it doesn't analyze, it absorbs. And whatever it absorbs repeatedly, it turns into reality. Now here's the part that changes everything. Because once you start becoming aware of your thoughts, once you start choosing what you repeat, you begin to notice something subtle. Your reactions change, your habits shift, your confidence grows, not from effort, but from identity. And that's when it hits you. You're not trying to become someone new. You're becoming who you've been programming all along. But this is just the beginning. Because there's one powerful technique, one simple daily practice, that can accelerate this process faster than anything else. And almost nobody uses it correctly. Not because it's hard, but because it sounds too simple to matter. And yet, this is the exact method used to communicate directly with the subconscious mind.
There's a moment every single day when your mind becomes extremely vulnerable. Not weak, not broken, just open, wide open. And most people waste it. Or worse, they unknowingly fill it with the wrong things. It happens twice, right before you fall asleep and right after you wake up. That half-asleep state, when your body is still heavy and your thoughts feel slower, that's when your conscious mind relaxes its grip. And your subconscious? It starts listening more closely than ever. Now here's where it gets interesting. During the day, your conscious mind acts like a filter. It questions things, doubts things, rejects things. But in that sleepy state, that filter weakens, which means ideas go in easier, deeper, faster. And this is where things change. Because if you learn how to use this window intentionally, you can start reprogramming your subconscious at a level most people never reach. But here's the problem. What do most people do before sleep? They scroll. They consume random content. They let their minds absorb whatever shows up on their screen. Stress, comparison, noise. And then they wonder why they wake up feeling the same. Because the last thing your mind consumes at night becomes the first thing it processes in the morning. Now pause for a second. What was the last thing you fed your mind before sleeping last night? Seriously, think about it. Because that input didn't just disappear. It settled. It echoed. It shaped your subconscious while you slept. Be honest. Does that feel familiar? Now here's the shift. Instead of leaving that moment to chance, you start using it with intention. You begin feeding your mind something different, something you actually want to become. Simple statements, clear ideas, not complicated, not forced, just intentional. I am becoming more focused. I handle challenges calmly. I am capable of more than I think. At first, it might feel strange, maybe even a little fake. But remember, your subconscious doesn't care if it feels real right now. It cares if it's repeated. And over time, what feels unfamiliar becomes familiar. And what becomes familiar becomes your new identity. But wait till you hear this, because there's another layer most people miss. Visualization. Not the fantasy kind, not imagining some unrealistic, perfect life, but seeing yourself handling situations differently. Calm where you used to panic, focused where you used to procrastinate, confident where you used to doubt. Because your brain doesn't fully distinguish between real experiences and vividly imagined ones. Which means
When you repeatedly visualize a new version of yourself, your brain starts accepting it as possible, then probable, then normal. And once something feels normal, you begin acting in alignment with it, without forcing it, without overthinking it. And this is where the transformation becomes real. Because now you're not just thinking differently, you're behaving differently, naturally. But here's the part nobody tells you. This doesn't happen overnight, and that's where most people quit. They try it for a few days, maybe a week, and when they don't see instant results, they assume it's not working. But that's like planting a seed and digging it up every day to check if it's growing. Growth is happening, even when you can't see it yet. And this is where patience becomes power. Consistency becomes your advantage. Because most people won't stick with it long enough to see the shift. But if you do, you start noticing something subtle. Your thoughts feel lighter. Your reactions feel slower. You pause before falling into old patterns. And in that pause, you finally have a choice. And that choice? That's where your power lives. Now here's a question most people never ask themselves. If you kept thinking the same thoughts you're thinking today for the next 5 years, where would it lead you? Don't answer quickly. Sit with it. Because that answer reveals something important. Your future isn't just built by your actions. It's shaped by your repeated thoughts. And once you understand that, you stop treating thoughts as random. You start treating them as tools. But this next part, this is where everything comes together, because even with awareness, even with repetition, even with visualization, there's still one final shift that determines whether your subconscious truly changes. And it has nothing to do with techniques. It has everything to do with identity.
There's a difference most people never fully understand. The difference between trying to change your life and becoming someone who naturally lives that life. And that difference? It's identity. Because as long as you see yourself as someone who is trying, your subconscious keeps you where you are. Trying to be confident, trying to be disciplined, trying to be focused. But trying still carries the old identity underneath. The same doubts, the same patterns, the same subconscious programming. And this is where things quietly fall apart for most people. They learn the techniques, they repeat the affirmations, they visualize the future, but deep down, they still see themselves the same way. And your subconscious doesn't follow what you say, it follows what you believe you are. Now here's the shift, and it's subtle but powerful. Instead of asking, how do I become confident? You start asking, what would a confident person do right now? Not someday, not when you feel ready, right now. Because identity is not something you wait for, it's something you practice. In small moments, in quiet decisions, in the way you respond when no one is watching. And this is where your subconscious begins to update. Not from words alone, but from evidence. Because every time you act in alignment with a new identity, you send a signal to your subconscious, this is who I am now. And at first it feels uncomfortable, unnatural, like you're pretending. But here's the truth most people won't admit. Every version of you was once unfamiliar. The person you are today, that was built through repetition too, through habits, through thoughts, through behaviors you repeated long enough until they felt like you. So changing your identity isn't fake, it's intentional. And this is where everything starts to click. Because now you're not waiting to feel confident, you act confident. You're not waiting to feel disciplined,
You take small, disciplined actions. You're not waiting to believe in yourself. You behave like someone who does. And slowly, your subconscious catches up, because it sees the pattern. It recognizes the repetition. It accepts the new identity. Now here's the moment that changes everything. The moment you realize you are not your past programming. You are the one who can rewrite it. And that realization? It's quiet, but powerful. Because suddenly, you're not stuck anymore. You're in control, not of everything, but of the one thing that matters most, the direction of your mind. Now let me ask you something. Who are you becoming, based on what you think, repeat, and act on every day? Not who you want to be, not who you say you'll be someday. Who are you becoming right now? Think about it, because that answer is shaping your future in real time. And here's the truth most people avoid. If nothing changes, nothing changes. Your subconscious will keep running the same patterns, creating the same outcomes, reinforcing the same identity. But if you shift, even slightly, even imperfectly, everything begins to move. Not instantly, but inevitably. And that's the kind of change that lasts, not forced, not temporary, but internal. Now here's the final thought to hold on to. Your subconscious mind is not your enemy. It's your most powerful ally, but only when you understand it, only when you guide it, only when you become intentional about what you feed it. Because the life you want is not built by chance. It's built by the patterns you repeat, the beliefs you accept, and the identity you practice daily. So don't wait for motivation. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Start small. Start quietly, but start intentionally. Because the moment you begin working with your mind instead of against it, you stop feeling lost, and you start becoming someone who knows exactly where they're going. If this hit something inside you, don't just move on like it didn't matter. Stay with it. Think about it. And if you want more ideas like this, subscribe and keep building a mind that actually works for you.